This morning, I thought I should talk a little bit about aging. Why do we age? And what are the factors that are involved in aging? Yeah, it's nice. I mentioned about Sweden. When you are in this hot weather, it's sometimes nice to look at the snow to make yourself a bit cool. Yeah, this book, I think I have a stamp here. This book was published in 1979 in the Scandinavian Journal of Gastroenterology. And this book is about nutrition and old age. You see, Sweden was a poor country between 1914 and 1944, between the two great wars. It was one of the poorest countries, in fact, in Europe. And 1 million people, they migrated to America at that time. In fact, some of the people who took part in this study, they in fact mixed tree bark with wheat flour to make bread. And if I tell this to the Swedish youngsters today, they say, "A crazy guy, he's talking nonsense." But that was a fact. And I'm sure that it is a fact even in many other countries at that time, between 1900 to 1950. So what we wanted to do was, why some of these people in Sweden, in a small county, was living up to 80 or 90 years? What was the reason, in spite of the fact that they were eating bark mixed with grain? So we selected people who were born 1901, 2, and 3. And the study started in 67, and they were already past retired age. So we went to their homes to find out, what was the conditions that dictated their survival. Was it shortage of food? Was it the genes? Was it the environment? So in this study, this book, of course, you can get it. People have forgotten. In fact, 2 of the guys, they are already gone. My friend, Mohamed, who was a friend of Ananda Prasad, he passed away. And another guy, he also passed away at the age of 90. And we are 3 left. And we are just waiting for the time. Anyway, this book describes the factors involved in the total life. Not only that, we followed these people for about 12 years to find out, what happened in their life. So my interest in aging started at that time. It was not trace element, it was aging. And I'm sure that most people want to really would like to know a little bit more about it. I work in the south of Sweden, very close to Copenhagen. This is where the University of Lund is situated. This is Norway, Sweden, and Finland. I am always fond of quoting some old sayings, because Anatoly mentioned that you have to have philosophy in your talk. And these sayings, Hippocrates, 500 years before Christ, he said that treat a patient with medicine only when you have failed with diet. I think there's a lot even today. I will come back to that. Then Churchill, he was a politician, but he was also a clever man. He ate, drank, he did all the bad things, but he lived very long. But he said that the further you look backwards, the further you can see forwards. I think there's very much truth in it. Similarly, Russell said that a good life is based on love and guided by science and knowledge. And that's what I believe in, science. I don't believe anything else. just mention that, it's very important to see that what Hippocrates said, there's a lot of basis even today. If you look at the diet, we all take it for granted in spite of all these advertisements, all the things that you see in the newspapers, mass media. You take it for granted. It's nothing to it. But I think there's a lot if you go back. Food is, in fact, the most intimate part of our system. And that is very important to understand. Unfortunately, education about food, even at the university level, the medical schools, a medical student like you may be having 6 weeks of nutrition. And although all diseases, including cancer, it is connected with diet. So it is very unfortunate that our politicians, our teaching authorities, they don't give sufficient time to give time to know the basic substances which you eat and you grow. Yeah, then again, Churchill, he said that he was not talking about politics and war. And I think the statement is very valid when we talk about diet and health. We have so many different kinds of diet. Many people write about the Stone Age diet, the invention of fire about 2 million years ago. And in fact, there are many scientists who say that we are what we are because of the fire. We learned how to make use of the fire and eat proteins. And that's why we are sitting here. I don't know how much truth it is there. Then, of course, the secret of seeds. The agriculture was introduced maybe about 12,000 years ago. Some people found that some seeds fell from some tree and it became a plant. And that was the starting point of agriculture. And then, of course, the tribes, the villages, towns. Then we have, along with that, we have the old cultures, tradition, we have religion, we have superstition, all came afterwards, not before that. I don't have a, do you have a, you have a thing again? It's behind Yeah, I thought I should, I have, how many minutes I have to talk? 25. So it's not much time. I will go through very fast. I thought I should talk a little bit about diet and aging. I should talk a bit about diet and the bacteria in the gut. And the other things, we'll just leave it. No, I just want to connect. Yeah, old age and chronic diseases. You see the Apollo, the Greek, the most handsome man, he wanted to die. He went to the pagan gods and said that, look, God, make my death very fast, but make it as long as possible. So this is all we want, And now the question is that, we, in all the Western countries, also in the Asian countries, the average lifespan has gone up. And 60 and 70, it is no more a matter of surprises. It's a fact, and nobody knows what to do with these people. In Sweden, for example, people get pensioned at the age of 65. In Greece, I think it was 52 or something. Now they are trying to put it up. But what you do, if people are going to be, in 80, 90, 100. We are basically what we eat, and then once again, we have after the fire and art of cooking, many other things have happened. I will not go into it. See, this picture, it just came just a few months ago. It says that this child is going to live 142 years. This is not a joke. It's all written by scientists and quoted by scientists who are dealing with genomics, who are dealing with all kinds of modern sciences. And this other one. This baby will be 120 years. And this came before the Time magazine came. And you can go to the very hard science, Scientific American, The Pathway of Youth. They have really found out so many different aspects of aging, and I think it's the most fascinating topic right at the moment, in my opinion. You see this lady, a shop owner in Hollywood, who is 112 and still going very strong. This man from Second World War veteran, still driving a car, 100 years. And this man, Romeo, these guys are coming from small village in Italy, and they still eat a lot of pasta and the old type of food, and he is 101. And this lady is still whistling at the age of 103. And this retired consumer advocate, she lives in New York and still keeping busy at 99. And these guys, now the biggest joke is that the White House Club is getting crowded. You already have 2 Bushes, and you have this guy, what is the peanut guy? Yeah, he's there, and then and they all lived, One wonder why, why these presidents, they have been living such a long time. So I'm sure that the women, Hillary probably will be the next one there. This Italian is 106, still going very strong. This man is still working very, very hard in America, working with computers, 106 years old. So now, let's see, what we know about these aging factors. There are so many things about. I have just mentioned a few here. Caloric restriction, probably, that is why I showed you the picture from Sweden. People who are eating tree bark and flower. So calorie restriction had been one of the basic, most ancient theories of aging. If from the time of birth till about 13, 14, if you eat a restricted diet, these genes are somehow, the aging genes are modified and they probably keep going. In fact, we not only did studies in Sweden, we went to 4 other places where people are known to live long time. Caucasus at that time, in Russia. We went to Andes in South America. We went to a place called Hunza in the north of Pakistan. And all these places, it was known that people used to live till over 100. But they all had the basic factor that they had a very hard life between the time of birth, perhaps even before that, until they became adult age. So calorie restriction, although it has been recently shown that in some animal species, it does not increase lifetime. And I have a better picture here. You see, in some species, it increases lifespan by 30 to 40%. But this is a bit controversial. But I think there is something into it. I think myself, I come from India. We had a bad time. We have not even electricity or water or sanitation. I don't have received a single vaccination in my life, but I'm alive today. And I'm sure that basic calorie factor has something to do with it. Rapamycin, this is one of the hottest substance today. Actually, Stanley Corina, he was a friend of mine. He lived in Canada. He went to the Easter Islands to pick up some samples, human blood, saliva, and everything from human beings. But the biggest surprise came when they found that the soil in the Easter Island had a bacteria, and this bacteria produced a substance called, they named it rapamycin. And now rapamycin is a medicine now. It is, you can give it to people who get transplantation in order to avoid rejection. And they say that it is connected to a gene called mTOR, mammalian TOR. TOR is, this is a target of rapamycin. And this has been found to have a lot of important functions. It acts both as angelic and diabolical in the sense that when you have much of it, it produces mineral growth, and when you have low amounts, it actually cut down. So it is somehow connected with caloric restriction, I think. Since my time is not very much, I have to go fast. And this metformin, I'm sure that most of you know that it's a drug that is widely prescribed to diabetic patients. And it was by chance that they found that this substance somehow activate the aging process. And they have in fact done a study in England last year. They looked at the mortality rate of diabetic patients who had metformin for a long time, and then compared with a group who did not have the metformin. And they found that it had really a big effect. And this is something very exciting because I'm sure that every physician prescribe every day many, many grams of metformin. The mechanism is not very clear, but it says that it goes in the mitochondrial pathway and somehow affect the aging process. Now, we all drank a little bit of wine yesterday, but I think it was little too little to get. This resveratrol is found in red grapes and some other berries. And some years ago, it was found that if you take a lot of this substance, not through wine, because then you have to get drunk really every day, but if you take 1 or 2 glasses, probably it acts on these proteins, sirtuins, and that way it affect the aging process. Wine has been known to exist for more than 6,000 years, but we don't have any information about the old people who did drink a lot of wine. How many minutes? 10 minutes, okay. Now, it is, Vincent, it is your topic here, genetic modification, which are the master regulators of survival. And I have shown a lot of pictures to really show that it is really getting a very important health issue all over the world. And we, the politicians, they don't want to talk much about it because they have no money. Even in Sweden, we don't have the money for the elderly. So I think if these mechanisms are going to provide a healthy aging so that your chronic diseases, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, many others, can be delayed. That's what happens. I think all these genes manipulate in such a way that the diseases come, but at a much later age, and then they pass on very fast. So what these genes are doing, that I don't know. I mean, it is a big mystery, but these are some of the factors that are known. And many people got Nobel Prizes, for example, for telomerase detection some years ago. And that has been found that if you have a defect in that gene, then you don't grow, you degenerate very fast. And I don't have time to go into all of this. This is very interesting. This man here, this is a small group of people living in South America, in Ecuador. And this man, he has 3 grandchildren, his daughter and his wife. They're all, he is not more than perhaps a little more than 1 meter. And they have a genetic mutation in the growth hormone pathway. And these people never get cancer. These people never get diabetes. That has been shown 100% because they have done a study on about 200 families in Ecuador, looking at that particular I-125, I don't remember exactly what it is. And look at that, and there's a whole group there. And I think same group, probably in some part of Italy, some part of New York, in Bronx, there are some Ashkenazi Jews. They don't get high cholesterol, for example. They don't get high rate of cardiovascular diseases. So I am sure that some of the genes are interconnecting and somehow intricating the process. But this is the most interesting study that's going on, and they have 200 families of this size. And his, 3 grandchildren, his daughter, and his wife is standing there. No, next one.
No, it's collapsed. What is the? No, it's collapsing. Yep.
Okay, now just a few words about the bacteria. That's very important also, not only because of the aging process, but it is because, see, if you compare, we have about 50 trillion cells in our body. But there are 10 times more bacteria, starting from the mouth till the end. Trillions and trillions of them. And much has happened in the last 50 years because of the diverse eating habits, because of different cultures. We have destroyed the entire bacterial flora, and they do have some very important functions. Because without them, we won't have vitamin B12. We cannot digest many starchy foods. But by manipulating these genes, I am sure that we can perhaps get a bit better life. We have a full catalog of all these. Vincent mentioned that genomic studies have really done that. They have really listed all the bacteria that in the gut. But I will just mention one or two very quickly. No harm to humans, and there are in fact there are tens. When we say bacteria, we always think of disease. It's not the case. Yeah, here I just wanted to say a few words about this Helicobacter. That is the man, Dr. Marshall got Nobel Prize 2 years ago because he followed Helicobacter and produced ulcers in the stomach. And for that he got the prize. But now they have found out that Helicobacter is a very good bacteria because in that acid environment in the stomach, why it is there? Nature has created for some purpose. And that really has become a problem in most of the Western countries because all the children who get infections of the ear, nose, throat, penicillin. You go to any doctor, penicillin. So in America, there are only 6% of the children have this Helicobacter. That's all destroyed. And now we don't know how to recreate that scenario back. Then we have the other many common cell bacteria, and that really is very important. These two hormones, ghrelin and leptin, that is very important for obesity, very important for weight gain. In fact, in America, they said the big children, one of the reasons is that you have destroyed the Helicobacter, and they cannot control those two hormones. So similarly, this immune system has been very bad in many people because we don't have those bacteria, we don't have a right balance. Now, lactobacillus is getting very popular. All the yogurt which you get in the morning, there are hundreds of different kinds of lactobacillus. And people are coming with more and more lactobacillus cases, and I'm sure that a time will come when we will have a better system of balancing this system that which we have upstream. Even that flora, can cause anxiety, depression, mood changes. Nobody thought about bacteria in the gut. In trillions can do that. I will not go into that. Yeah, I just stop my lecture by saying that good life is based on love and guided by scientific knowledge. And that is a picture of the midnight sun. In June, if you go to Sweden, 21st of June, you can see the sun in the middle of the night. Okay, you're all welcome. Let's stop there. Question?
is oxidative stress. This is most important than metformin. Oxidative stress and deficiency of antioxidants, natural antioxidants.
In fact, I had a slide there showing that stress and related factors connected to the aging. And of course, in modern day, it is very difficult to control stress, because either you have a social welfare in the country with all people stressed, or you live in the Stone Age diet, that kind of thing, So it is a very, very difficult, and stress hormones are definitely connected with many of these factors which I mentioned. And aging, definitely, if you are less stressed, like, in India, we have a lot of these Maharshis and gurus. They sit down and they are not stressed, and they live long.
So Abdulla, my question as a clinician, as a practitioner in your daily practice, do you then advise patients what to eat, what not to eat, more so than you perhaps would prescribe an antibiotic? Is that you see how your clinical practice has evolved over the years based on all of this information?
Exactly. That's what you see since that study in 1979. I have really gone into the basics of eating. And I myself practice, when we have coffee breaks or lunch breaks in the hospital where I work, they said, "Oh, are you really eating that?" Yes. I said, "It's good food. I have no problem." So I do practice that. I tell people. As I mentioned before, although we have a lot of questions which coming from internet, but we have to convince them. I said, "Look, I'm the doctor here. You are not doctor. You are patient. So you have to listen to me what I say, because I spend half my lifetime in getting the education. So you have to be rather tough to some people, and I do that. And vegetarian food has become very, very, very...
And I'm sure very convincingly, too, as well. Yeah. Thank you.
I would invite Professor Vincent to...
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We hear a lot about the Mediterranean diet. I actually was born and raised in a Mediterranean country. And I do believe that the Mediterranean diet is starvation. If you compare Southern Europe from Northern Europe, there's a lot of differences. One of them is socioeconomic status. People who are living in the 90s and 100s, they grew up eating just barely enough to survive. And I don't think olive oil or whatever, or oregano or whatever else the Mediterranean has anything to do with it, just the amount they're eating. What's your thought on this?
Oh, excellent. In fact, I wanted to talk about it. I had no time, because Mediterranean diet, that's one thing which I wanted to specify. In fact, in one slide, I showed that the spices, ginger and curcumin and so many others, they have found that antioxidants, antioxidants, they say that it is not the antioxidants per se that is giving the protection. It is because the plants which grow, they produce a pesticide to save themselves from other creatures which eat them. And these small pesticides goes into the fruit. Mediterranean diet, you have a lot of nuts and you have a lot of olive oil and a lot of other things. And that gives us mild stress in the brain. And that process keeps you much fit. It keeps the message to the gut. So I love Mediterranean diet. And in fact, I eat a lot of fish, nut, olive oil, wine, and so on.
So one comment regarding the diet and dietary intake, especially as it relates to Western, but more specifically is the American diet. There's also psychology behind that. And the psychology is the following. So over time, someone who wants to take a meal at a restaurant, very popular in places where the individuals are, senior citizens, they translate what they are to receive is amount of food on a plate directly related to the cost of that individual meal. And over time, it developed the philosophy that, well, I wasn't getting value for what I'm about to pay for the meal because look at this portion size. It's very small. It didn't equate with what I was paying. And so that led to the idea, well, we'll just increase the size of the plate, which meant that then they could take more and more. And it also evolved into what's very popular in many restaurants is a buffet. Buffet means you can take your plate, you go, and you just help as much as you want. And I've always been not surprised, but over time, whenever I would have international guests come to America, they would always comment, look at the size of your plates are so big. Why? It's because that connotation to value when it is at in a restaurant environment, you're wanting the value of what you're able to put on the plate, of what I then pay. Not a very good rhyme and reason, but that's where it somewhat evolves from.
But I think you're very right on psychology and also
Yes.
a bit of luck. I mentioned, one of the Italian guys, he was supposed to go to the Second World War. Then he got his broken his ankle, so he was relieved from the army. And all his friends went to Russian friends, the Russians killed them, So he mentioned that it's a matter of luck too. Psychology and luck also matters.